Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Jason White and this is Jason's Weird Reads. Today I'm going to be reviewing two cosmic horror books for you, and they are Sacculina by Philip Fracassi and Unknowing, I Sink by Timothy Huguenin. So, if you don't know what I do here, if you just stumbled on to this channel because of maybe you're just checking out one of these books, I like to talk about horror books mostly. I also talk about some science fiction and fantasy, but if that sounds like your bag, hit the subscribe button and we'll discuss some books. Alright, so I'm going to start with Unknowing I Sink by Timothy Huguenin because I think I read this one first. And let's get into it, shall we? The synopsis for this story, and this is what you can find on Goodreads or probably on the back of the book. Julian finds a summer job cleaning a mansion belonging to Mr. V, an eccentric recluse obsessed with arcane knowledge. The man's grotesque, swollen appearance, caused by an unknowing condition that keeps him bedridden, initially disturbs Julian. And those creepy terracotta statues lurking in the shadows don't help to ease his nerves. But the rich old man wants to pay him more than he ever imagined, while Julian struggles to understand his new employer's discursive monologues. A dreadful ache grows inside his chest. Where has this feeling come from? How is it that a statue's blank stare can cloud his mind? And what bizarre and horrifying secrets will he discover when Mr. V's esoteric philosophies become manifest? The story moves along fairly quickly. I really enjoyed myself listening to this book. I listened to the audiobook, and the author reached out to me and wanted to send a code to me so that I could listen to it for free. And unfortunately I can't do that because Amazon Canada has not got their shit together yet. I mean, this is something that pisses me off because I've had people wanting to send me a book before. They have the codes, but it's not available in Canada yet. Seriously, what the hell, Audible? Like, fix your shit. Jesus. So anyways, getting back to it. This is a bit of a coming of age story, and we follow Julian as he takes on this summer job that I described, and it has some interesting responsibilities, like the feeding of Mr. V, which is a very strange. It's very strange. Let's just leave it at that. I like Julian because he seemed like a dependable and hardworking young man. He's a good guy. All he wants is a car and a girlfriend. It makes me think of when I was a kid, to be quite honest with you. He gets his job, and it pays a lot of money. I mean, when it said in the synopsis that it pays more than what you would expect to make, this kid's cashing it in. So all this kind of builds into something kind of weird, and by the ending, things kind of collide, and you have what is Unknowing I Sink. The writing to me was well done. I had absolutely no issues listening to this, although because the code wouldn't work, I did end up buying it. It's only like $6 Canadian, so I can't imagine it being much more in that USD. But it was well worth the effort of or well worth the money of purchasing it. It's a novella length. I think it's only like maybe 4 hours. At no point did I ever feel bored listening to the story. Or frustrated in trying to understand what it was I was reading, aside from maybe the weird ending. But this is weird fiction, so that's quite normal. What I mean by frustration at wondering if in understanding what I'm reading, is more about like sentence structure, passive versus straightforward writing. And I would say that Timothy Huguenin is a very good writer where you can just understand exactly what he's talking about. The characters seemed all very well fleshed out to me. They felt very real. My biggest complaint about the characters was that they didn't seem to change very much by the end. And like I might have missed something in regards to that because the ending is quite strange. But I just didn't really see too much development in that area. Other than that, the characters were believable. I didn't feel like I was reading paperboard cutouts. Overall, this is a great story. I think it would be interesting to see where Timothy Huguenin goes, especially where he goes with his work, especially if he sticks to more of a cosmic horror type thing. I would like to see what he does with the genre, should he continue with it. I felt as though this novella felt like it kind of belonged, it felt like it belonged in a collection as the novella entry. It belonged in a collection of maybe Timothy's short stories. If he ever does release a short story, I would personally encourage him adding this, because it really had that feel like this is the novella section of a writer's short story collection. But is it cosmic horror? Yes, of course it is. But it's kind of like, it's almost like cosmic horror light, and I think it comes down to the characters. The characters are all, even the villain is kind of likable. I mean, there is that weirdness at the end, but it's not necessarily extreme in the way that, just say, Shelter for the Damned by Mike Thorne was. That was some crazy shit, and there was some crazy stuff in this book too, but I think the characters here were all easy to like, and the weirdness at the end isn't too mind-bending. Although our other reviewers also found that there was like a building dread. That's something I didn't necessarily feel myself. Overall, it was just an enjoyable read. I enjoyed myself while listening to it, and honestly, I recommend it for that, especially if you want to expand your cosmic horror reading at all. I think I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Definitely recommended. Definitely check it out if you haven't. Next up is Sacculina by Philip Fracassi. Here is the synopsis. When Jim's big brother Jack is released from prison, the brothers, along with their broken father and Jack's menacing best friend, decide to charter an ocean fishing boat to celebrate Jack's new freedom. Once the small crew is far out to sea, however, a mutant species rises from the deep abyssal darkness to terrorize the vessel and its occupants. As the horror of the situation becomes clearer, the small group must find a way to fend off the attack and somehow, some way, return to safety. But as the strange parasitic creatures overrun them, they must use more extreme and deadly measures to survive. So, in regards to the story, as with most of Fracassi's other work, this story is intense, especially once it got going. It does not let up. The wanting to bond with family while out fishing kind of reminded me a little bit of Hemingway, but this is no Hemingway story whatsoever. What we get is a phenomena of nature that man is ignorant of and therefore gets trapped by. And the writing, as with all of Fracassi's work that I've read, the writing is it's fantastic. It's phenomenal. It's very easy to understand if you're to listen to this on audiobook, which this one I did listen to on audiobook as well. I had absolutely no issues whatsoever losing what I was listening to or forgetting. In regards to Philip Fracassi's writing, I have to wonder if he didn't take a psychology course somewhere in preparation to write stories. Not just this one, but all stories, because his stories tend to be very intense, and it's almost like he knows exactly how to grab our attention and to hold on to it, especially once the things that are in the story begin to unfold. There's a familiar thing with the Fracassi story that I've come to learn of within the past month or so, because I've been reading him a lot, and that is that the stories might start off a little bit slowly because we're learning about the characters and their lives, but then the thing that's going to happen happens, and you're pulled right in. And my God, Fracassi does not let up. He will destroy entire cities and give you vivid, almost movie-like descriptions of what's going on. And although, you know, I don't think I've ever read a story where he destroyed a city. I was just being, I guess, overly dramatic in a sense, but it's like that. It's on that level of intensity, and he's brilliant at creating that intensity. The characters, the characters are not just fodder for victimhood. Everyone, save the captain, perhaps, has a life. I mean, the captain himself, he has a life too, but I can't remember if we ever actually delve into the captain's life. The story is mainly focused on the two brothers, the father and their friend. And they all have, you know, of course, they all have a backstory, and we get to learn a lot about these characters while they're out there. My biggest complaint about this whole story, if anything, is the fact that the father kind of gets forgotten for a little bit of the story. From somewhere in the beginning to when the catastrophe happens, he's just not there a lot. And I kind of wish that we had the father interacting with everyone a little bit more, especially, you know, because of what happens later on in the story. You just want that, a bigger connection between father and sons. But other than that, that's my only complaint of this story, honestly. Overall, is this cosmic horror? Yes and no. I would definitely lean heavily on the yes, because although the phenomena these characters come across is quite natural, and unless of course I miss something, it is also a force of nature that is completely ignorant and uncaring about humanity and our little universes. Our loved ones, our losses, our pain, and accomplishments. Can't talk today. It's just doing what it does, and we just happen to get in the way. And while I was writing that, because this is all written down, in case you can't tell, I'm reading it off my screen. While I was writing that, I couldn't help but think of the HBO series Chernobyl, because although the event in that, you know, the whole Chernobyl thing, that's not natural because it's man-created. It still has that feeling of something in nature coming in and destroying you, because radiation, let's face it, radiation is a natural phenomena. It comes from the sun. If we didn't have the atmosphere, let's just say if we went to the moon without any radiation protection, we'd all be fried by radiation. and so it kind of reminds me of that in a sense, even though there's no radiation here. I'm not trying to confuse you. There's something from the ocean that comes up and starts feeding on and attaching itself onto things. Barnacles, to be honest with you. I actually mentioned that in my vlog while I was listening to this. So I highly recommend this story. It was a lot of fun, especially, you know, in the typical Fracassi method. Maybe that's what I'll call it, the Fracassi method, is that, and it's not just Fracassi, because you see this in other forms of horror stories and cosmic horror stories, weird fiction, is the story is set in something grounded. It has a foundation of reality. And then something happens to either unravel reality or unravel the character's reality, meaning their, you know, their existence. And the story does exactly that, but it has that Fracassi feel of, it's very cinematic in a sense. It's very, very dramatic, which, you know, makes a lot of sense because Philip Fracassi comes from a background of writing screenplays. So there's my reviews. Oh yeah, and Sacculina got a full 5 stars for me. Maybe actually 4.5 because of I think the father did need maybe a little bit more time. Other than that, this is a really, really excellent short story. So there you have it, my reviews for both these books. They're both novellas, and I really enjoyed them. I think you should go and check them out for yourselves. So thank you for watching. Keep being creative, and keep being safe. I'll catch you guys in the next bookish video.